When the supply or die event went live, I had a game plan to grab tin and pressurize ice. First, I headed over to Magnus Gateway, only to be met with a bunch of other players doing the same thing, waiting in line for kiosks and commodity restocks. I realized I had to pivot since I was originally trying to solo. I would need to wait an undetermined amount of time before I could buy tin and risk being pirated or murder hoboed, or I could join a group and improve my odds of completing the event missions. So I decided to join a group, and it was worth it. Over time, as I participated in the event, I discovered 5 ways to gather supplies for these missions and 2 enhancements I thought could improve gameplay experience. More on that in this video. Number 1. Buy supplies via station or outpost kiosk. Resources can be purchased directly from in-game markets at stations or outposts, providing a quick and straightforward option for players who prefer to bypass gathering activities. The risk increases significantly when undertaking missions that require gathering Datatrine due to the higher payout, which attracts more players, groups, or organizations and creates heavy PvP encounters. Number 2. Mine and refine the supplies. Players can mine raw materials, example copper, iron, tin, or ice, using mining ships like the Prospector or Mole, and then refine them into usable forms such as tin at a refinery. This method combines extraction and processing. Number 3. Salvage the supplies. Salvaging involves collecting resources like recycled material composite, RMC, and construction material from wrecks using ships like the Vulture, Fortune, or Reclaimer. Salvage is easier to come by, but takes some time to gather, more so for RMC. Number 4. Retrieve the supplies from bounty ship missions. Completing bounty ship missions allows players to loot resources from defeated targets, offering a combat-focused way to gather supplies while earning additional rewards like reputation and extra AUEC. However, the cargo gathered from wrecked ships is random in quantity and type of commodity. Number 5. Piracy, aka rob other players. Players can engage in piracy by attacking and stealing resources from other players, adding a high-risk, PvP-oriented method to acquire supplies without mining, salvaging, or purchasing. Groups can interdict ships in the main traffic quantum highways, which I call spaceways. For example, traveling from Magnus Gateway to Pyro Gateway is a direct path for hauling tin, one of the commodities for the event missions. Lastly, here are 2 enhancements I thought could improve gameplay at this point in time before 1.0 comes out. Number 1. Player Auction House. While players can trade amongst themselves, this opens the door to being robbed or scammed unless players want this style of gameplay. I think adding an auction house would introduce an interesting gameplay element. Players who gather resources from mining, salvaging, and stolen goods could sell them off, allowing others to buy supplies for contracts without gathering them directly. We have the freight system. I can't see why we couldn't add that functionality. Number 2. Player restocking mission stations or outposts. Players could restock stations or outposts like Magnus Gateway, for example, for an even larger payout than if they delivered resupplies to one of the factions in Pyro. There could be missions that pop up whenever a station or outpost becomes low on supplies. For these missions to work, you would need to mine raw materials and refine them or salvage, incentivizing mining and salvage gameplay. Delivering your goods still carries the risk of being pirated or murder hoboed, but pirates will not receive the larger payout due to not completing the mission requirements, although they can still turn in the goods for one of the faction missions. The economy in this event doesn't make sense. I think the payout for those who restock stations should be higher than those who just haul goods for the event missions, adding an element of cost of goods. However, I understand why they created the event this way. Buying tin and pressurized ice dirt cheap with minimal investment risk and an enormous payout encourages everyone, good citizens and pirates, to participate. Both of these enhancements carry a high risk of being pirated or murder hoboed, but spread out the locations where resources need to be transported. This could offer a slightly better solo player experience for good citizens and pirates if that's what some players want. While it can be soloed, I'm glad I joined a group. It made the event fun to do. We had an operation where people bought supplies, loaded and unloaded them, and escorted the hauls. Eventually I completed all 3 rewards. The event is clearly not perfect. With its current setup, the least path resistance is for most players to wait for stations to auto-restock commodities, leading for mostly hauling, cargo, and engaging in piracy, with fewer players opting to mine or salvage. What do you guys think? How could they improve future events?